Hello and welcome to the matchup presented by Shell Polymers. Your 3-2 Pittsburgh Steelers are trying to get back to their winning ways after 2 straight losses. They're visiting the 2-3 Las Vegas Raiders at Allegiant Stadium, trying to keep pace in the AFC North with the 3-2 Baltimore Ravens. And only 2 teams have better records in the AFC than the Steelers and the other 3 teams, including the Ravens, that have 3-2 marks. Alongside Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson from The Drive, I'm Rob King. Thanks for being with us. And Matt, again, for some of the reasons I just mentioned, record, not wanting to make this 3 losses in a row, validating the 3-0 start. There's a lot of reasons this game is important for the Steelers. Very.
I mean, a 3-game losing streak is not going to cut it. I mean, the AFC is going to be competitive. The division is going to be competitive. There are some teams in the division or in the conference that are not quite living up to expectations, but you have to take advantage of that stuff. I mean, this is a huge game.
So the AFC West is a good place for the Steelers to go when you look at teams not named Kansas City that they've had success against recently.
Yeah, they've won their last 4 against the AFC West in matchups, including winning in Las Vegas last year, and that was critical to me in that they were able to go to the West Coast or into that Western time zone and win in Vegas. They also won in Seattle last year, and that's been something of a problem for the Steelers over the years. But beating those AFC West teams, again, these are teams that you're going to be positioning yourselves against. When you get into wild cards and things of that nature, or even just playoff spots in general, good to get those wins in conference.
All right, let's take a look at the key matchups then leading into today's game. We start when the Steelers have the ball. And Matt, yours is pretty simple. Run up the middle of the field.
Yeah, and especially with Najee clearly going to be the main ball carrier here. We don't know what the situation is behind him, but he's probably not going to have a lot of relief. He's going to have a heavy dosage of downhill runs, so not left-right runs, not stretch runs. Get his shoulders square to the line of scrimmage, attack through those A-gaps, especially with Christian Wilkins out of the equation.
Right, Christian Wilkins, $110 million signing in the offseason, is out of this game. Robert Spillane is by far their leading tackler in the middle.
Yeah, and that's one that I think the Steelers should try to attack. They know Robert Spillane well. He is a downhill kind of linebacker. He plays every down though for this Raiders team. And if you look at what he's done against the passing attacks of opponents this year, he's allowed 15 completions in 17 pass attempts for 169 yards. So if he's going to start coming downhill to help them stop the run, you got to run the tight ends and maybe some wide receivers on crossers in behind him and kind of open that up.
I think this is kind of a combination of things here, Matt. So you talk about maybe the Steelers guards getting out on those linebackers. Maybe Divine Diablo is back for the Raiders. Looks like he's going to be. He's a nice young player. And then you have Spillane, obviously, who we know with his time with the Steelers. But when you think about Spillane, and I think we all agree on this and what Dale is saying, he's a guy that I think the thought here was the deficiency might be in that passing game.
100%. I mean, he's not the rangiest, linebacker out there. He's got a really good head for the game. He's aggressive. He's physical. I assume he's the green dot guy. As Dale mentioned, he never leaves the field. And he's been productive for them, but I definitely want him moving laterally with, receivers crossing his face or behind him.
Well, guys, thank you for doing the in-depth work. So that leaves me with Max Crosby, the kind of obvious guy, right? When you look at this Raiders defense, I mean, last 3 years he's made the Pro Bowls. He's had all-pro selections, led the league in tackles for losses a couple of times over that mark. So can Broderick Jones protect him? And that's my key matchup in this one is Crosby versus Jones. Especially in the passing game, yes, you're going to have to throw the ball sometimes, but also just blocking him. And the Steelers, it's not a great area for the Steelers right now with the way the offense is progressing to get in 2nd and 12. You don't want to see tackles for losses in addition, Dale, to sacks in this game.
Yeah, and to your point, Rob, they'll line Crosby up. They'll move him around, but 79.6% of his snaps come against the right tackle. He's at that left defensive end spot, and so Broderick Jones is probably going to be matched up against him a lot on the obvious passing downs. They will also move him up over the center at times as well, and they'll go with a 5-man defensive front. So it'll be interesting to see maybe what Rookie Zach Frazier does against this guy. And he's an active guy. He never comes off the field, but he is dealing with an ankle injury that forced him, missed his first game of his career 2 weeks ago with that ankle injury. And this is a guy that plays a lot of snaps. You got to know where he's at, especially without Christian Wilkins in there. And, you got to handle him. He's a handful.
We should point out, on a gimpy ankle, playing in 4 games, he has 5 sacks.
Yeah, he's doing okay for himself, including 2 last week. I mean, he is a TJ Watt type of game wrecker, far and away the best Raider player in this game. He's got really long arms, great bend, explosion, technique. As Dale mentioned, unlike maybe any other edge rusher in the league, he logs every snap, and he plays hard.
All right, it is time now for our Yins Chat. You can answer trivia and predictive questions and compete against Steelers Nation. Head to the Steelers mobile app and play this week for a chance to win an autographed Joey Porter football. Remember to play every week, and you could win the season-long grand prize. Up next, the Steelers defense against the Raiders offense when the matchup presented by Shell Polymers continues.
Our fans are here. Give them something to cheer about today.
And the party is on at Acrisure. Oh my! Absolutely phenomenal. Interception on the pitch to the goal line. Touchdown Pittsburgh. That's just sensational. I can't even believe that I just saw what I saw. And he's sacked by T.J. Watt. You have to be here.
Welcome back to the matchup presented by Shell Polymers, continuing to get you ready for the 3-2 Steelers visiting the 2-3 Raiders at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. And the Steelers head out there with T.J. Watt in the record books. Dale gets his 100th career sack, second fastest behind only the great Reggie White to get to that mark.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as I noted a couple weeks ago in my 5 for Friday on Steelers.com, White had 2 seasons playing in the USFL, so by the time he got to the NFL, he was kind of a full-grown man, whereas T.J. Watt's been playing since that rookie year here in the NFL, and so Reggie White hit the ground running a little bit more than T.J. Watt did. A great accomplishment there for Watt, and also one of just 3 guys to get to 100 sacks before his 30th birthday.
Good stuff. So, thank you, F. Dale Lolley. T.J. Watt, your thoughts on him? Obviously, a premier player.
Yeah, we was just raving about Crosby a couple minutes ago, and I think there's 5 guys, along with Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, and Nick Bosa, that stand above the rest in terms of edge rushers, and TJ might be the best of the group. I mean, he is remarkably productive. We know the numbers over his career of what the defense does when he's on and off the field, and it shows. I mean, he wrecks games.
So let's get to our keys now as we get back to this game about the Raiders on offense. Now, they've made a switch at quarterback, Matt. You know that they'd like to run the ball. Now, stop me if this sounds familiar. They had the 30th ranked run defense. Steelers should be able to stop that just fine. Well, that's what we were thinking the last couple of weeks. It didn't work out that way for the Steelers. So your key is to cash out on the nickel.
Yeah, and they do throw a high percentage of the time. I think that's not by design. It's because they have not run the ball well at all. But again, we said the exact same thing sitting here with Dallas. And these past 2 opponents have been quite effective getting the Steelers in their nickel with the nose tackle off the field and running right up the middle of the defense. Getting big bodies on Patrick Queen and those guys. But this week's a little strange in that they've so many outside linebacker injuries opposite Watt. Maybe you'll see some different type of fronts or different nickel packages. I'm really interested to see how they counter that.
Yeah, and I think when you look at that, the Steelers have to figure out a way to combat that, and they do have to figure out what that mix is going to look like, opposite T.J. Watt there, because we assume, as everybody does, Watt's going to get a ton of attention. If that's happening, somebody else better win.
All right, let's get to my key, which is Devontae Adams not being in the game. We didn't even think he'd be a Raider maybe at this point of the week, taping this on Thursday. But he's still in a Raiders uniform. Unfortunately, he hasn't been able to get out on the field due to injury. So Brock Bowers is their tight end. And I think it's going to be sort of a cumulative effort to stop him because they do move him around a little bit. He was a first-round draft choice this year. Antonio Pierce, the head coach of the Raiders, called him a superstar. Maybe he'll see a lot of Deshaun Elliott, but I suspect it's going to have to be a group effort to stop him.
Yeah, it will be because, if you look at it, Rob, he's lined up 84 snaps in line, which is on the end of the offensive line, 109 snaps in the slot, and 33 snaps out wide, in terms of where he lines along the sideline. So he will move him around. They'll move him around and try to get him away from some of those matchups. And if they're able to do that, he gets up to speed quickly, and he's a tough guy to get on the ground.
Yeah, too big for corners, too fast for linebackers. Really, really good body control. You see in some of these highlights, they'll throw it to him behind the line of scrimmage because he's so good after the catch. He has big play abilities. I mean, he's really burst on the scene and doing what few tight ends have done in their first couple games of the season, of their career.
Yeah, and to tell you what they think about him, I mean, they had Michael Mayer. They drafted him in the second round last year. That's usually adequate. That's going to be our starter moving forward, unless you see a chance to get Brock Bowers and then
They
you
just
draft
saw him
Brock
as a
Bowers.
weapon, and he
right,
is.
that's right.
And he is.
He's
Right.
a weapon, and that takes us to my key,
Nice segue.
which is to tackle the catch. If you look at this Raiders offense, they don't throw down the field a lot. A lot of it is that stuff at the line of scrimmage or within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, largely to Bowers, who has 28 catches already this season, and let him run after the catch. Let the defensive backs try to tackle this 245-pound guy out on the edge. The Steelers have to be ready to get these guys on the ground, because if they're not, you'll see these guys break a tackle and go.
And I think the Steelers have done a nice job tackling,
They have.
getting a lot of people
Yeah.
to the ball this year. I mean, the defense is faster than it was a year ago. I think it's a strength of the team, but you're right. Bowers in particular is the guy that can, especially as tight ends go, can really hurt you after the catch.
So the 3-2 Steelers are visiting the 2-3 Raiders on Sunday at Allegiant Stadium. Kickoff is scheduled for 4:05 Eastern Time. For Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson, I'm Rob King. We thank you for watching this edition of The Matchup, presented by Shell Polymers.